It's the Van Cave again and again with Jim Storms. If I got you for a weekend, I'm going to hang on to you.
Uh-oh. I'm a little nervous this particular
No,
session.
don't be nervous. That's why I did all talking last time, which kind of warmed me in.
But it's covered.
Yeah, we'll get to that.
Okay.
So I'm drinking my usual horrible Friolite sailing beer.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Sailing beer. Is that
Yeah.
official sailing beer?
It is. This is the stuff, I don't know if you've caught the episode. Tim and I found it at a gig. It tasted terrible. Tim, being a brewer, said, let it sit. Let it sit a month and it'll be good. And I did, and it was.
Awesome.
So we call it, it's official sailing beer because I can put a case of it on my sailboat and forget about it and come back and it's good.
Cool.
The main reason I'm drinking it is since you and your lovely bride are having dinner with us tonight, it is going to be pretty spicy. And my chemically war-torn stomach with all of my issues, I kind of have to go easy. This is pretty much water that was poured close to an open beer is kind of what it tastes like. So here's what I'm doing to you.
Okay.
So I know you're, like I said, you're not a beer guy, and I don't fault you for that at all. You and I have consumed any number of illicit beverages together.
Including beer.
Well,
but it did not end well.
Right. We talked about computers in the 80s the last time you and I were together, and I only had notes for one episode. And we talked before, and we talked a lot after, and so today I kind of want to pick up and make you talk more because you have some brilliant ideas about the future and the present, and we're going to go from there. But we left off in the 90s.
Yeah.
Okay.
With AOL.
Well, you broke my brain when you mentioned
Telegraph
Road.
Yeah.
And the heyday of Telegraph Road ended in the 90s.
Right.
And so I brought some stuff from the 80s last time.
Okay.
You know, I had our old business card and the article. So I'm bringing you something from the 90s.
Uh-oh.
A Zima.
A Zima.
How about that?
All right.
Served in the period correct
way.
Technique.
Yes.
Which is, make sure everybody can see that, is turned upside down. This is traditionally a chick drink, and it's probably going to spill everywhere. I don't know.
Yeah,
maybe. Yeah, there we go. That will pour just fine that way. And you have to pull it to the side and chunk it out. There you go. It was specially reissued. It tastes like frosted tips and Smash Mouth.
Yes, yes.
So.
And I can remember at least once you carrying me home from.
That was, yeah.
I think that was schnapps.
Probably so. That was a lifeguard party, staff party at Water Wonderland.
Yes.
So now that Water Wonderland is closed and defunct, I'm going to tell a Water Wonderland story. I promise not to talk as much this time, but you got to hear this. So Water Wonderland, old water park in Midland, Texas, it's abandoned. I've heard people are reopening it, and it closed and opened a number of times over the years. One of the things we used to do, there was an authorized staff party.
Right.
The unauthorized part would go on after hours.
Right.
Where a whole bunch of shit-faced teenagers would ride bumper cars and take those little flying turtle skateboard things down and just all this horrible stuff. I mean, it was stupid.
The fact we survived is interesting.
Looking back, that was probably a pretty dangerous place just to be, but to be there drunk after hours and
to disobey every single rule.
All the safety rules, it was horrible.
By the way, we knew why those rules were enforced.
We certainly did.
And there were broken limbs involved?
Well, fast forward many years, it was reopened for a little while, and I got a call out there for something. Cars breaking into the parking lot. I was a patrolman.
Right.
And I went out there, and I saw a couple of the guys that worked there when we worked there. Like,
really?
Whoever owned it knew them, called them back, and it was like the first season, and they were there to help out. So it was really cool to catch up with these guys,
cool.
And they're still out there in their shorts and Water Wonderland t-shirts, just like I remember them.
Oh, yeah.
And they all had real jobs. They were just back helping do all this. And later that season, we got a call to a break-in.
Uh-huh.
And it was a bunch of drunk staff members doing stupid shit in the park.
Oh, yes.
And I'm like, man, I can't
You can't.
Yeah.
There's too much irony involved
I
there.
can't do this. And whoever came out for the park, I can't remember. Somebody I'd never met. Whoever answered
The call, yeah.
the call, when they said, "Hey, somebody's breaking into your place," gets out there, and it was all staff members. He was pissed at them, but it was over. So
somebody was cleaning the pool for the next month for sure.
Yeah. I said, I've been there.
Yeah.
I completely understand.
Yes. Yes.
So
that would have been ironic.
It was. It really was. Even a lot of the same places where kids will hang out and drink beer and shoot fireworks. We told a story about that the other day. I made calls to the same place. Hey, there's some people out at this caliche pit. And I'm like, yeah, no
really?
shit. It's Friday night.
Yeah. Like, yeah. So what's your problem?
Yeah. And that's one thing that modern policing, the body camera age has taken away.
Yes.
Is the ability for cops to say, pour your beer out, get the fuck out of here.
Well, and back then, people knew my aunt and my mother. Yeah. And it was actually worse.
Yeah.
Because they weren't going to take me to jail. They were not going to do anything like that. They were going to call my aunt and my mother, and they were going to deliver me into their clutches.
Yep.
And that was much scarier than.
That's true. And you got to think, it's funny looking back in the 80s. In our circle of friends, we occasionally drank on weekends. Nobody smoked weed. Nobody did hard drugs.
And I'm going to speak up in our defense. We were smart about it. We had designated drivers.
We really did. Yeah. That's something that we did.
I can't remember a time when it wasn't, okay, who's going to drive?
Yeah.
Okay, you're driving. We're not going to do anything. And so this is a story. After one of our unofficial parties outside the park at somebody's house, way out in the country, I was not the designated driver. You had driven me home.
Oh, yeah, in your little Nissan pickup. Yeah,
right.
I remember that.
But the next day, either you or somebody drove me to go pick up Richard's car.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And Richard's car was dead.
Yep.
The house that the car was parked at was empty, and I was hungover.
Yep.
And I'm 2 miles. There were no cell phones. I'm 2 miles from the nearest house.
I remember that.
I was not a happy camper. By the way, Richard, I'm still mad at you. Fix the battery.
Richard is going to be in here. I'm getting him and James, we're gonna have a good time at some point. I've got to get all those guys in here.
That's gonna be scary.
I just remember the days at the park. It would open on a Saturday morning, and here came all the little screaming kids, and the entire staff is just miserably hungover.
Yes. I could remember that. It is, you can't explain the feeling of dread.
Yeah.
And you're looking through the glass doors, and there are hundreds of kids.
Yeah.
And you have this pounding headache.
Yeah. Hot. Oh my God. That was,
it's 100 degrees.
Yeah, it's 100 degrees. All you have is that, if you have shade, it's just that little deal over the lifeguard thing.
Yes.
So yeah, man. Oof.
Those were the days.
Yeah, those were the days. I heard somebody's going to open that place up.
I would come if they open it back up.
Something happened today, made me think of you, other than you were coming. But I have a clock up on the wall, thinking anybody can see it. Doesn't matter. And I changed the battery in it because the battery was dead. And I'm saving this, the last Radio Shack battery. How many of these do we go through? Those used to be the best batteries around.
Yes.
And
do you remember the free battery every month? You had a little card. And
yeah. Radio Shack was really a thing.
Yes.
And the parts and all that. We spent some money there. A lot of allowances and Water Wonderland money and
yes.
paper route money and all that went to that.
Yes, they definitely got their money's worth for that free battery of the month club because I can't imagine how much money I spent there.
Oh, yeah. Well, another random memory I had the other day was you had a relative that delivered a lot of newspapers.
Yes.
We're not talking a kid on a bicycle. It was a big deal.
This was a car full of newspapers.
Yeah. And whoever that was went out of town for
Yes, and I would deliver while they were
months.
gone.
Yeah. And you enlisted my help, and we invested, I know all of what would have been my share, and I'm sure all or most of yours, in a darkroom setup.
Yes.
And we had a darkroom
Yes.
set up in, I remember the main bathroom of your house. We
Yes.
completely took it over.
Right.
Yeah.
We bought a blackout material for the windows and doors, and my mother complained constantly about the smell.
Oh yeah, they smelled like cat pee. It was like a meth lab in the house. I can't remember what acid is the stop bath.
Yeah, I can't either.
Acetic or
I still have a lot of that equipment in my garage.
Really?
Really.
Oh wow.
I'm missing the timer.
Mike Montalvo, who follows this podcast, or he was on this podcast quite a bit. Mike is getting into film, and I gave him a ton of film camera stuff.
Really?
Yeah, I was interested in it, but I don't have any room for any more hobbies.
You can't get I get you there.
And so yeah, you know how it is. And with the observatory, I put together a good system. And
I think I still have a box of black and white paper.
Oh wow!
That hasn't been exposed. I don't know if it's any good, but ask him if he's interested, because I'm never going to get it out again.
Yeah. So, I'll tell him. In fact, I may have mentioned. So, Mike, you want to do a dark room? Off you go. So the other thing that happened, we were talking about processors and whatnot, and I replaced. I was doing something. I had a case split open on a computer. Was messing around with a PCI card, and noticed on that PCI card was an 8088 processor.
Yes.
And that used to be the processor that drove Telegraph Road and anybody else's computer back in the day. And so where we left off was the AOL revolution, which, the giant bulletin board.
Yes.
And then suddenly one day they opened a door to a little web browser on AOL.
Yes.
And that was it.
In the internet, and that's when the flood happened.
Yeah, the flood.
Yeah.
So I can remember seeing all the big companies come online, and
I remember when Google and YouTube were still partners.
Oh,
or not YouTube, Yahoo.
Yahoo, yeah.
And Google were still partners. Yeah. Yes. And man.
Well, you said something really interesting earlier. That started us down the wormhole. That the internet is not structured to be a commercial thing.
No, it was never meant to be. It was never meant to be these big companies running everything. It was always meant to be peer to peer, person to person, university to university.
So when I hear peer to peer, I think back of Napster, LimeWire.
Exactly. That's actually more along the lines of what the original architecture intended.
How does that actually work? I can kind of sort of, I keep some of it, you keep some of it, somebody else does.
Yeah, so the early days of the internet, everybody had a blog. And a lot of people had blogs on what were, at the time, they're called static IP addresses. So whenever you were at a university got a static IP, and you'd put your computer on the internet, and you'd get that static IP, you'd get it a name, and you were off to the races. And you owned the computer that was presenting your information. Somebody had a problem with it, they had to come find you. There was no Google overload.
It was like the old Page the Sysop days, right?
Right, it really was. And it wasn't like Facebook, where Facebook, if they decide they don't like what you're saying, they pull you down or ban it or whatever. Same with YouTube or Google or whatever.
So this is beyond throttling and shadow banning and all that stuff that's going on.
Right, exactly. This was your machine. You owned it. What you said was your deal.
So the internet at that point was just like a phone line between.
Right. It was really
between you and me.
Right. And whatever we decided to talk about or post or whatever was the deal. But you couldn't find each other until Google. So Google became the gatekeeper, and that gave them a lot of power, a huge amount of power, too much power. And then came the fact that it's really hard to run a blog on your own computer. So then comes Facebook, be able to post your own information. And then comes the ownership and advertising.
Now, when you talk about a blog back then, how does that compare? You can go ahead and hit your drink, dude.
Yeah,
I'll
yeah.
talk for a little while.
Oh, good, because I'm thirsty.
You can do the drinking for a while. A blog then, a blog now. Blogs are dying, I guess.
Yes. You don't see as many.
You still have a blog, but you have a technical blog, right?
Right. Mine is purely technical, and it runs on a machine in my closet still, strangely like Telegraph Road. In fact, the case is probably open and probably has guts everywhere.
I looked at your blog one time and
put you right to sleep.
Can we say it?
Sure.
Is it cool? Storms.net?
Yes.
Is that
Yes.
correct?
Yes.
Storms.net, STORMES.net. You're going to look at it and go, what the fuck is that?
Yeah.
And unless you're a coder, and then you're probably going to take your clothes off and do stuff. So.
Yeah, probably you will still fall asleep. You'll just fall asleep less faster.
You'll fall asleep a little bit better of a coder than you were
before. Yes. Yeah.
So what when you say blog, what's the difference? A blog in the instance you just talked about it now.
So a blog used to be your own personal thing. It was about you and whatever you wanted to talk about, and you owned it, you controlled it. There was no oversight.
So this could be not just like today's, personal diary stuff. It might be a reference site. It might be
right. It might be an encyclopedia. It might be. In fact, that's how Wikipedia got started.
Okay.
For instance, any site on the internet and anything you wanted to do, it was wide open. You wanted to host music. Well, you could host music. Of course, copyright law steps in and stops that. But if it was your music, you still could do it. And even if it was copyrighted, they had to come find you. They had to come serve you. They had to come figure it all out.
Okay.
So, but now, of course, you've got Google who can, if you're on Google systems, they can say, you're not on our system. They kick you off. Facebook, they don't like what you say. They kick you off. It's really not the freedom of speech platform that was envisioned to be.
Well, we talked about this. We talked about the Sargon, deplatforming.
Yeah.
And the Alex Jones banning, deplatforming, and how they're comparing it to First Amendment, platform and a utility. And if we had MattTube.
Mm-hmm.
And it was beating YouTube, I wouldn't allow Alex Jones on it.
Yeah, so
that's just me. But I would say, if you repost Alex Jones, if you Alex Jones can't post because a couple of videos ago, I've got a personal issue with the guy.
Right.
And I just say, I don't like the guy. It's mine. Get away. And I know that now interferes with the First Amendment.
I don't think so.
Thing. Well, with calling yourself something, I don't understand the legalities involved. There's some question in there of it being kind of like a utility.
So here's the interesting question. Let's go back to the blog days.
Okay.
When I physically own, like my machine, I own it. It's
right.
physically at my house. It's physically on a line that I pay for. I own what's on it. But I own what's on it. If I don't like what people do with it, I can kick them off.
Okay.
It's like somebody coming into my house and saying something. Literally, they are coming into my house and saying something. Let's talk about it from Facebook and Google standpoint. It's their house.
Okay. And that's my wife is way more up to speed on this, and she's of course she's a contracts director,
right?
And she can read
legalese.
Yeah, I mean, working in a district attorney's office and dealing with this for years, I'm pretty good at it. She is, a ninja at reading that sort of stuff.
I just cry and get in a ball.
Yeah. So when it comes to what you're seeing now, I would have no problem if, when they kick Sargon off, they would just say, yeah, it's not a violation of our terms and agreement, terms of service or anything. We just don't like him. He's politically, we don't want to host that.
And I would be fine with that too.
Yeah, that's not what's happening, with a lot of them. But
right.
Where do you go? That's the deal.
Yeah. So here's the thing: is I would really like to see us return to this peer-to-peer original design of the internet. I've got some ideas that I'm hopefully working on that are more peer-to-peer social networking. And honestly, I think that we will see that return even without anything I do, simply because people will want it.
What is there anything close to that happening now?
Not really, but to be honest, the technologies are very new. One of the technologies, blockchain, and I'm not talking about cryptocurrency. I'm talking about the simple blockchain technology, a distributed database where multiple systems can agree on what the data is without a master server.
So what's that going to do for us?
That gives us the ability to post things that no one owns the platform. In other words, there are no Facebook servers involved. It's everyone's phone, for instance.
Okay.
And I think it'll be interesting because what you'll see is that the ISPs have to allow this to happen to some extent. They may not. It's really a variation of LimeWire and BitTorrent, those type of peer-to-peer concepts, but we apply them to a social network platform.
Okay, so
and this is getting really technical, so I don't want to bore our
no, believe
listeners.
me, I do. Like I said before, I consider myself an above average user. I'm not a programmer. Most of what I've learned started with you.
Right.
What you did for me when we were kids is I lost my fear of technology.
Okay.
Is in working on these machines, and I learned that there are more ways to help it than there are to hurt it.
Yeah. Agree with
Okay,
that, yeah.
so if something's not working,
or not working the way you want,
yeah,
you're the master of the machine. It's not master of you.
right. And so that has built into, I was a system administrator for the sheriff's office's system, Linux system for a long time, and I don't have that fear anymore, and I credit you for doing that. But that said, I'm barely hanging on to what you're saying, and here's what I want to know, and I'm going to invoke some more Tim Kreitz. What does that mean for the average Peckerwood who is going to pull out his phone and want to see, I don't know, what his aunt's doing today in a Facebook-like social media platform?
So until we simplify the technology, it's going to be more like the old BBSs. So we talked about Telegraph Road, and when we joined, what was it, WorldNet? I forget what the
Yeah, WorldNet,
WorldLink, that's what it
Yeah.
was.
Dude,
So
I love it. Now, oh my God.
we're circling back around.
No, this is a moment. Everybody witnessed a moment where two guys, pushing 50, went, God damn it, we need to go back to the old days of pencils and papers. We're like, we need to go back to bulletin boards. That would be great.
So WorldLink. So at night, I talked about how at night the bulletin boards would call each other and exchange messages. Well, the cell phones can exchange messages with each other over the internet the same way.
Is that what goes on with like Snapchat?
Yeah. Well, Snapchat still has centralized servers. This is
Okay.
taking the centralized server out.
Okay.
And the way you do that is with blockchain and with BitTorrent. And so then that leads us to everyone owns the content or no one owns the content.
Okay, so here's my question about that. If so let's take this let's look at Facebook as an example. Just like we explained when we ran the bulletin board, and I was the guy pushing the broom every day, we kept having to plug holes.
Right.
Okay, we had people cheating on games. We had people doxing. We had people. If you guys missed that episode, if you want to know how people did all this in the 80s, pre-internet days, pre-consumer, regular people internet, I was constantly plugging little holes here and there as the sysop, is the guy there all the time. It was technical and something blew up, that was you. Who does it in your scenario?
See, that's the problem. So if this works the way that I see it, envisioning the world becoming, the problem is that there is no one at the gate. There's no sysop. There's no one to keep the people who want to talk about how great the Nazis were or whatever from doing whatever they want. So haven't worked that out yet.
Okay.
But I do think we'll see it. What I really think we'll see is people don't want to listen to what they don't want to listen to, and essentially we'll have a squelch where you just simply won't subscribe to information you don't care about.
So you're going to invent Reddit.
Reddit decentralized, yes. Because even Reddit has its limits.
Yeah, well, yeah, Reddit does. I've noticed, for instance, Facebook is intentionally, in my opinion, they intentionally make it difficult to configure the way you want it.
Yes, they have a default configuration they want you to use, and that they make it difficult to find all the little switches. And then after you find them, you're not really sure they did what you wanted them to do.
Right, and then when you go back to do it again, they moved it. They've moved it.
Right.
And as an example, if you have a friend that just constantly shares memes that you're not interested in,
right,
just constant over and over, and it's somebody you want to maintain contact with, it's a shirt tail cousin or your neighbor or whatever, not somebody you hate, not somebody you
but you just don't want it flooding your
feed.
You
just don't care about the advertisements or cat videos that they're sharing. You can unfollow, but
that's a little extreme.
But it is, because you'll miss something. If you again, you'll miss something. I missed graduation because in between just constant posts of sharing videos and whatnot. It's all or nothing. There's nothing in the middle.
And this goes to the Facebook algorithm that decides what you see first.
Yeah. We've had a lot of fun with that on this podcast.
Right. Yeah. And so my vision is that in a peer-to-peer network, you were probably going to have to decide who you like best and who you like least. And probably you could probably go along the lines of, don't show me reposts from this person. In other words, if they're reposting something not original, don't show it to me.
That would be beautiful.
It would be.
And I would really love something that says, if I've already seen this,
don't show it to me again.
Yeah, if I've already liked it, if I've already, whatever, I don't. Most of this podcast is a Facebook audience.
Yeah.
And we have a hard time just getting news out, even if you're a member of the group.
It gets pushed down.
Yeah. If you're on my page,
I have to go scroll and scroll and scroll and scroll to find you.
Yeah. Even if you're a member of, once Facebook figured out, okay, I'm sorry, my brain's going faster than my mouth. Okay, so originally the Van Cave for many years was a secret group.
Right.
Secret group means only people I allow in it can see it. And what it was the people that came here on Sunday nights and that would smoke cigars and play poker, and that was it.
Right.
Because nobody else cared.
Right.
And also, maybe there are people that wouldn't necessarily, a girl who, we signed autographs for in a club down the street, we may not want here playing poker or some stupid game.
Right. You had an exclusivity.
Right. When it was that page,
right,
and I typed, "Hey guys, not feeling great tonight, no Van Cave." Boom, instant visibility.
Top. Right.
And here's the thing, it told me how many people saw that.
Right.
Then once we made it a public page, and because we wanted to keep the name and all that, once it became a public page, even though I changed nothing else, I made it public, and it was obviously for a podcast. It is deprioritized.
Right.
I can no longer see the count.
Right.
They took that away.
Well, and one of the things is that you now are competition. So you are pulling eyeballs away from the Facebook platform.
Yep.
So they push you down. A good business decision, perhaps. I don't know. But for the actual business of the internet, that's very bad.
It's kind of like the price of beer in Vegas. It's high, but there's not a damn thing you can do about it.
Exactly, because they own the platform.
Right. And you can't go anywhere else.
And as sad as this is going to sound, I agree that they should be able to do it. It's their platform.
Right.
So the way you get around it is you make a platform that no one owns.
That just amazes me, and I'm just having a hard time in my head putting together the peer-to-peer thing, which I
Well,
totally get, but
and my hope is to have something functional before the end of the year that kind of proves out the concept.
right on. Well, you're the guy to do it. We I put the observatory together and changed some software. And it was not working. And Jim came out one night with a couple of computers and put them together. And you said something. You weren't bragging. You were just talking, but you had changed the operating system on what was it, Kindles, or you'd done it for your wife and all your kids. You had taken.
I don't know because I do it so often.
Yeah, it was an Amazon device or something
Yeah, the Amazon phone. So Amazon created a phone, their own branded phone for a while, but they didn't really put Android on it. They put some really brain damaged version of Android, and they sold the phones for $99, and that gave you a free year of Amazon Prime, which cost $99. So the phone itself was free.
Okay.
And I bought 5 of them. And of course, with 5 of them, what are you going to do? Well, they're perfect to hack. Well, what are you going to hack onto it? Android. Well, now we have 5 really good Android phones with no real purpose in life.
Yeah, I remember we were talking about that, and like I said, we worked on this project, and we waited for it to get dark, and we went out and fired up the observatory and tested everything, and it worked beautifully. And I remember you said, there's probably 5 or 6 people in the world that could do this. And then you said, I don't know why anybody wants to do it.
Right. So
it was either that or a similar project. But
that was me questioning my life choices.
Yeah, questioning your life choices. And so, yeah, you're definitely the guy to do it. So, so what's that's doing is putting administration and security and all that
in the hands of the public. Yeah. And that's probably the scariest thing.
You told me what that's called, the principle,
the tragedy of the commons.
There we go.
So
the park analogy.
Right. So the tragedy of the commons is let's imagine that someone or an individual takes their time, builds this beautiful park in the middle of the city, gives it to the city, but the city doesn't collect taxes or anything to maintain the park, doesn't do anything to maintain the park. No one maintains the park, but it's a beautiful park, so people keep going there. But things wear out. The grass grows, the swing set gets broken, vandals vandalize it, and soon the park becomes an eyesore. And that is the concept of the tragedy of the commons, because the common people used it, but nobody maintains it.
We just keep coming back to that with everything, don't we?
I think so. I think people want things, but they don't want to pay for or maintain it.
Yeah, it's a little bit of everything. But what in your mind? I hear we had a conspiracy theory episode, and it hasn't aired yet. It's about to. By the way, this episode we've managed to get 2 in your one visit. And depending on how much we drink, we may get like 10 or 12, and we may be back on UFOs and conspiracy theories. Who knows?
I think at this rate, we're going to be on UFOs pretty soon.
Yeah. Well, thank you for doing this, because I believe this is going to put me in a good spot to release 2 a week.
Awesome. That's good to hear.
That's what we're playing with. But the direction I was going with this was
tragedy
security.
Of the
Security and all. What should people in right now, current technology, be worried about? We hear a lot of stuff. I just want to know what's real. And I'm going to get you another drink.
Okay. So security is it's hard, honestly. Computer security. The biggest problem is that people are not very good at it. Both the programmers building systems and the people who create passwords. They create a lot of bad passwords. Probably the scariest thing is how much information out there that you put out there and you give away for free, and then how much information is kept about you. So I don't know about you, but I get a letter every few months telling me that my social security number has been compromised yet again.
Honestly, I'm very fortunate, knock on wood. I have gotten 2 of those letters, both of which were due to security breaches within the United States Coast Guard.
Wow.
Yeah, a lot of my info got dumped.
I've had mine stolen from the credit rating industry, from banks,
Yeah.
oddly enough, and from credit cards,
Well, there you go.
credit card companies. But what's interesting is it's become so routine that I just simply watch my credit report pretty much every month and look for any suspicious activity.
Got you. Yeah.
And it's interesting. What do you consider a security breach? If they get on your phone and steal your pictures, is that a security breach? If they get your credit card number, is that a security breach? If they come into your house and steal your computer, is that a security breach?
I worry sometimes about I worry about my network, my wireless, but at the same time I don't completely understand it.
Right.
You know, I couldn't tell you the well, I could tell you the protocol, but
I'm
I,
gonna.
I just don't completely understand how it works.
So I'm gonna interrupt you there. Here's one of the problems with wireless routers, your home network, wireless network. It's a static device. It was manufactured, it was thrown out there, and it's not maintained. So any security flaws it has are permanent, which means that me driving around or someone on the internet who hits your external router can, if there's a flaw, they're going to find it. If they find it in yours, they're going to find it in everyone else's. If they find it in yours and everyone else's, then they can come through. But here's the bright side. Even if they come through, what are they going to get? They get to the security of your PC, which now they have to get past it. That's a lot of work. So generally, they will go for something easier.
Well, even if you're on and just let me back up. If you're on just a Windows firewall,
Yes,
that is pretty squared away.
it is. So if your computer, you'll hear the term surface area.
Right.
So every computer exposes something called ports. You have a number of ports that will be open or closed. When you have a firewall, it closes off the ports. Unless you explicitly open a port for like a game or for Facebook, you're pretty solid. You're not going to get anybody coming in through the network that way. What you'll probably get is more of a Trojan where you open an email and it opens a communication system out of your computer. But that, again, don't open anything you don't know where it came from.
Right. Yeah.
And keep your virus scanner up to date.
Yeah, just kind of know what it looks like. I had a really interesting conversation with a couple of guys at work, and we're all investigators, professional investigators. And I don't have my wallet here, but I like the minimalist wallets.
Right.
Right, you've seen those. I wish I could hold it up.
Right.
Picture a very tiny wallet. Okay.
Yes.
But mine has an RFID
ID blocker. Yeah.
Now, when I saw that, immediately, you know, I'm in hotels a lot. I think it's great because I can take the card, put it in there, slam it against my cell phone, shove them in my pocket, and the magnetic strip will still work.
Right.
Because some of them are pretty tender.
Right.
That's what it meant to me.
Right.
And then another guy said that's so whoever they might be,
right,
can't scan your credit card with the device.
So that is a misnomer.
Well, I know how that started.
Oh, how's that?
Well, in practice, but I would like to hear you explain that, and I'll tell you how this kind of stuff gets started from my professional standpoint.
Okay, so most credit cards do not have RFID. They have a chip that requires physical connection to the chip. And the chip is encrypted and requires an encryption protocol to decrypt it. And they're not going to get you with an RFID to your credit card. Now, I don't know if anything else you might carry might have an RFID in it, but your credit card is safe.
We the first time the little paw print on a credit card, the contacts, the little,
right.
you know, if you look at it, it kind of looks like a paw print. Those are on the new when I got the new military ID card.
Right.
Everybody's saying, "Oh man, your whole record is in there," and I'm looking at it going, "I don't think that's the case."
Right.
But then they became your client access card for the military's computer system, right? So you shove it in the slot and
right.
that.
And so it looks like it's got a lot of information.
And if you took the card out too soon, your client access card. So if you pulled your CAC out of the slot,
everything
stops. Get it? You see what I did there?
Right,
that
right.
was our deal. Yeah. So here's how that stuff starts. I'll tell you right now how it starts. I'm going to use an example of car burglaries.
Okay.
and I didn't say this when Cliff was in here, because Cliff would throw his drink down and run away, because this is what he deals with every day. He reads these reports and all. Is everybody has a key fob
Right.
now. Okay, there's typically 3 ways to lock your car. You got your fob, you got switch inside, or you can just push the little thing down, just like we did
The old school,
back in the Telegraph Road days, right?
Right.
Okay. So what happens is most
now,
car
key card
burglars,
is and a key fob is different than a credit card. But go ahead.
right? It's different because it is actually
The
emitting
RFID.
an RFID signal,
Right.
But it gets weirder than that. It's deeper than just something that's going into it's not broadcasting. My password is 12345. It actually works way different than that.
Right.
The
right.
technology is deeper.
Yes.
In other words, I can't just record that signal and replay it and it works.
Right. No.
So
It's
here's
called
what
a replay attack, by the way.
you can do that with my garage door.
Yes, you can.
My garage door
It
is
is Sears and Roebuck 1970.
yeah, you guessed it, man. Because it's got dip switches.
Right.
And it literally, when you
Transmits
presses
the same
button,
signal every time.
says 1 2 3 4 5, and the receiver goes, "Yep, I heard 1 2 3 4 5. Screw it, I'm going to open." Okay, so the average auto burglar, car burglar, goes through a neighborhood and they check to see what's open.
Right.
As soon as it's open, they hit the console, they hit the glove box, maybe the door pockets, look around, and they shut it and they go on.
Right.
So what happens is somebody comes out, and of course in West Texas, Midland, and a lot of places where people carry guns,
I was going to say, yeah.
they keep the damn gun in the console or in the door
Right.
pocket. Okay?
Right where it can be found.
Don't do that.
Right.
Don't do that. The gun goes on you, not in your purse. It goes on you. If you're not willing to carry a holster, do not carry a gun.
I can't agree more.
If you put the damn thing in the car, put it in a lockbox, put it in the trunk, disable your trunk lock.
I would agree.
Okay, if you've got your badass AR-15 with all the crap bolted to the rails in the trunk, all I have to do is smash your window and punch the trunk release and take it
I
out.
have a nice, pretty AR-15. And if I saw you at the range and I followed you home, hey.
Yeah, exactly. And especially if you know what kind of car they have and it has a mechanical or just a simple electrical mechanical with no interrupt, nothing else. Okay, so what happens is they come out and all their crap is missing, and they call the cops and they say, "I know that car was locked."
Right.
Now, was it locked? And when you ask people this, they're in an emotional state. Think
Right.
about this. How many times in the last year have you gone out to your car and it was unlocked?
A lot.
Yeah. Me, not that much, but I've still done it because we have muscle memory.
Right.
And we teach muscle memory when we teach shooting.
Right.
In other words, I always use the example of a smoker.
Mm-hmm.
J.R. Brewer, my friend J.R. I always talked about him when I teach this. I'm going way, way complex into this issue.
Oh, this is getting deep, folks.
When I start telling stories, I'll look at the timer. J.R. has never owned a shirt that does not have a pocket up here.
Really?
Yeah. He told me, "Man, I found this great shirt. Didn't have a pocket," because he carries his smokes in that pocket.
Right. My grandfather did the same thing.
Right. He wears the same kind of jeans. He takes smokes out.
Pulls out the
Lights it,
lighter.
right.
Right.
You want to jack with one of those people? Flip a cigarette upside down. Right?
It's true, yes.
Yeah, because their muscle memory
Yeah.
is there. All right. I don't have to look to open my phone under the table and know it's upright.
Yes.
It is down to muscle memory. If you interrupt that muscle memory, you're not going to finish the task.
Right.
If there's something wrong in there, I usually, if you flip it over.
Right.
How many times you've been talking to somebody and you're going, "Man, Matt just won't shut up. How late is it? I still don't know what time it is. I just glanced at my watch. Now I'm going to look for real."
Right.
These little interruptions in our muscle memory are
Right.
what make us sometimes leave the car unlocked. Because you're getting out and you drop something and you picked it up.
Right.
You're talking on your phone, you switch it to the other side, you're picking up groceries. Why is this pertinent to our situation? Because that person says, "I did not do that," and they get on Facebook and talk about how a Russian hacker has some kind of device that opens their
magically opens
their BMW.
info. Right.
BMW or Saab has one of the tightest electronic deals. So now all over Facebook, they have all of these things,
Warning you.
warning you, Russian hackers, blah, 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 guy with, and what happens when we, and it gets worse because if somebody has a security camera and we look at it, some dude walks up to the car and goes,
click.
Takes it out. His buddy was off camera with a laptop and radar dishes or whatever. Yeah. And that's how that kind of stuff gets started.
Right.
So I can tell you, since I've had the RFID wallet
now,
and I carry my room key in there, never had to go get a second one.
I understand. So I will say that it is possible. So there is a hack to get into a car or start a car, more importantly, using a relay from the RFID that's in your pocket.
Okay, that makes a lot more sense.
So what they'll do, if you've ever played with directional antennas, you can pick up a lot of signal.
Once or twice.
Yeah.
We talked about them a couple episodes ago.
So you point it at the house until you find the sweet spot where that person's sitting with their key in their pocket. Now, if you have a car that lets you start your car just by sitting in the car, now all they have to do is relay that signal. Now, they can't copy the signal because there's a handshake involved. But if they can get that handshake out to the car, they can start the car. But it is technically very difficult, and it involves a lot of technical skill and luck.
And it's not something that the guy is going to be able to do and just run down the block ripping people off.
And by the way, it will not work with the car lock because you have to be pushing the button to unlock the car, but it will start the car.
Right. Yeah, it's... But according to Karen on Facebook...
Right. You're in trouble. So I use, for those of you out there that want to break into my truck, you're welcome to, because I use my grandfather James's car security method. I keep nothing of value in it.
Yeah, exactly. That's it. My even my work car, you're not going to get in the trunk without waking me up.
Right.
And
well, and if you got into the trunk of my car, you would find a very old blanket used by the dog, a fire extinguisher, and a first aid kit.
Yeah, there is a very expensive radio in my trunk that I believe wipes itself. Not like wipe, like
right. You can wipe remotely,
like you learn how to do when you're 5. That if it's unhooked a certain way in a certain sequence, it will
itself. Yeah.
It becomes completely worthless. A spare tire and pretty much that's it that isn't bolted into something and secured. So that's the way to go about things. And also, please note that all of this can still be defeated by a coat hanger.
Yes, or
in
a
most
hammer.
Cases.
Because,
or a hammer, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
A hammer will get you in. So even the Tesla, so the high-end super technology Tesla is currently being defeated by breaking out its back window.
Fascinating. That amazes me. I got to wear, when I was a patrolman, we had Slim Jims.
Uh-huh.
And I could get into a Ford product like that. Guess what cops drove?
Fords.
Yeah, all the guys in my crew, who was always locking their keys in their cars.
Cops, yeah.
So in the...
and that's embarrassing.
Yeah, in the early 2000s, I can guarantee you almost all of our key locks on the passenger side didn't work because there was a plastic fitting you would break.
Right, to use the Slim Jim.
When you use a Slim Jim, so we would always do the passenger door.
Right.
That way when you blow that one up, you can still get in and out. So,
right.
Yeah, we had to do that all the time. So I just, that my point is in that whole
security
crap is there's reality and then there's...
Yeah, there's security theater, and honestly,
security theater. That's beautiful, man. I love
it. The simple fact of the matter is, people don't care enough about it to put as much energy as you think they have into stealing your cassette from the 1980s.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, that's true. I'll tell you a funny story about that. Years ago, I seized a cell phone on a child molester case.
Goodness.
It was an iPhone.
Uh-huh.
And we knew that it had evidence on it.
Uh-huh.
There wasn't a question. This phone had evidence. I'm not even going to the case. But we knew it. And we did not have Faraday bags.
Uh-huh.
And I don't remember why. We didn't have any. My wife we had just had the house sprayed
Uh-huh.
for bugs, and the exterminator had come. My wife keeps a lot of really nice aquariums.
Uh-huh.
So there was, 200 square feet of aluminum foil on top of all of the aquariums. So I
Right.
came home and I grabbed a bunch of aluminum foil.
Uh-huh.
And
A natural Faraday.
Natural Faraday.
For those that you don't know, a Faraday blocks radio signals.
Yeah. The Faraday cage, the Faraday bag it's an evidence bag that you drop this thing in. And so we wrapped it in foil and put it in a file cabinet so that it couldn't be
transmitted.
And so we got it there. Everything's safe. We're cool. All that's good. And long story short, the way the case ironed out, the guy realized he was just completely caught. There was no way he was getting out of it, phone or not.
Right.
And as things went by, and he gave us the code. And this is a brand new kind of iPhone that we still didn't know what it was going to do.
Right.
So we made sure that there was not a way to enter a secondary code that wipes it.
Right.
Okay, 1 2 3 4 opens it, 4 3 2 1 wipes it.
Right.
And I don't know how long that took, but we finally found somebody that says no, on iPhone whatever, it doesn't happen. So they said just don't try to do the code too many times.
Right, because that will wipe.
Yeah, and that was the only thing at that time that would wipe it. Anyway, we opened it up, dumped it, got everything done. Well, in the meantime, we had I'd probably taken the evidence guy out back and beaten him up for not having Faraday bags. So he had ordered a case of Faraday bags.
Right. And they're not expensive.
No, they're not. We were just out.
Okay.
It's just like you're spinning that toilet paper roll and there's nothing. It just shit happens. So I'm in my office and I have this pile of aluminum foil.
Right.
And now I got my Faraday bags complete from the evidence company, and it comes with a pile of tape and
and the instructions and all that. Yeah.
Same fucking thing.
A bunch of aluminum.
Same aluminum. Yeah, it's
aluminum with instructions.
The only difference is it was aluminum that was like glued to the inside of an envelope.
Right.
But the aluminum foil had like a little pattern or logo on it.
Right.
It was the same thing.
Right. They just glued it to
it was
foil.
just glued in there in less than I had used the first time.
Right. Because you probably had a big ball of it at some point.
Yeah. But it became policy to use Faraday bags. And
Right. Spend the money for Faraday bags. And somewhere there's a Faraday bag company that's very happy that you do that.
Yeah. So they do come with some neat, the form and the tape and all.
Right.
Yeah,
you can write the number on it and everything. Yeah.
So you can make Faraday out of Faraday material. Use aluminum foil.
Right. In a pinch.
Yeah, that was definitely a pinch.
Yeah.
But yeah, we deal with a lot of that. We went through a point where people were using Wi-Fi to hide evidence, so we had to word search warrants. Like they're using directional Wi-Fi,
right?
Cantanas. You can make a antenna out of a Pringles can.
Yeah.
Of course, now you can buy the little Yagis.
Yeah, I was gonna say now they do it professionally.
And they would point, put their child porn out in the shed,
right?
Or on other property, or hang it in a tree or whatever. So we had to
I'm glad
word search warrant so that it's electronically connected.
Right.
Well, in a certain way.
Right. So I feel for your pain because trying to get the law to understand the technology has got to be a challenge.
Well, yeah, it's a certain thing will work for a long time. For instance, what would make it hard? I taught this in a class one time. If you'd imagine, so I've got something illegal, like I've stolen a bunch of security numbers, credit card numbers.
Right.
From like a waiter.
Swiper, right.
Yeah, a waiter or swiper, somebody. So he puts them on a drive.
Right.
And I take this drive, let's pretend this is a little passport drive.
Right.
And a wireless router. And I plug it in, with the power strip.
They actually show that as all one piece now.
Yeah, and it's all one thing now. And I go over to my neighbor's house, Like I reach over my fence and put it on top of my neighbor's shed.
Yes.
Which,
now it's on their property.
Yeah, because my neighbor, their shed butts up and it's all covered in ivy, and he used to let me like poke rakes and stuff,
Right,
store
just
stuff, but
right.
it's on his property.
Right.
Which if I write a search warrant,
right,
doesn't cover that.
Right.
So, and if you didn't know it, you'd have to go get another search warrant.
Right.
And some were worded to be electronically, because we approve.
It's connected.
It's pointed
right.
that way. So, yeah, that's another
interesting.
another way to go at it.
Luckily, those guys aren't very bright. So.
Yeah, but when you get to crimes like like child porn, sex crime, that kind of runs the gamut.
Does it really?
Yeah. I mean,
and I could definitely see that.
Yeah, I mean, everybody's into sex somehow, pretty much.
Right.
So
it's a biological imperative.
Yeah. So you get into some smart guys, and you get into computers that are booby trapped to wipe and things like that. And then you get just the really stupid ones that downloaded off of a peer-to-peer. Have you heard the new YouTube thing? What's going on?
No, I haven't heard.
So here's what they're doing on YouTube, and I would have to get Nicole to explain exactly what it's called. I hear you all shouting at the screen. It's time stamping, but so what it is, there are paraphilias in pedophiles. So there's kinks in pedophiles. It's like kids in bathing suits or kids in school uniforms or certain shoes or whatever. You have no idea. Just certain kinds of kids, whatever they're into. And they don't necessarily have to be in an unlawful state, like undressed or whatever.
Right.
It could be your child at her birthday party that you put on YouTube.
Right. I can see that.
Right. And they'll either copy the video and repost it, or on your video, they'll put something about 3 minutes and 23 seconds. And it's when she's jumping off a diving board in a bathing suit. Right. So these guys can go.
Right. And that's why YouTube's making a lot of those videos. You can't comment on them anymore.
Yeah. That was a part of it. And the problem where it comes in on that is, if it's a choir and there's 30 kids in it, and a guy posts, "Hey, check out the third kid on the fourth row," blah blah blah. It cuts off everybody's ability to share, to comment.
Right. This becomes the tragedy of the commons.
Back to the tragedy of the commons, because you got one guy that likes to, jerk it to kids, and then you have to figure out how to deal with it, instead of just cutting that one guy off.
So that leads me to an interesting question. Have you been following the deep fakes?
No, I have not.
Okay. So computer AI. I told you about Medusa earlier.
Yeah, Medusa's
my Bitcoin miner.
His
right.
big one.
Okay, so I have a Bitcoin miner. I agree. I can hear you screaming. Don't worry about it. It does other things. It's just my little supercomputer. So using those types of devices with the correct software, you can create lifelike images of people doing things they've never done.
Oh yeah. Very. There was laws had to be changed to make that happen, and also that is used to catch child molesters.
Right.
Yeah.
So because they can create fake child pornography to catch them. So how does that affect the laws? What if there are no children involved?
You can still, just by the current laws, it's no different than when, like me, a 48-year-old investigator gets in a chat room and says I'm a 13-year-old female. It's the same thing, because that's what that person. It's back to the Chris Hansen, the To Catch a Predator.
Okay.
That guy gets arrested for trying to have sex with a 13-year-old female. And there's not a 13-year-old female anywhere in the story.
Right.
But at the same time, do you make that illegal if the guy
knows it?
Well, no, I mean, if he takes your lifelike version
and turns it into something
and
naughty.
uses that.
Right. How do you handle that?
I'm not 100% on that. I know there are some laws that are written. There may be I have not worked that case, and I'm not that fresh on it. I'm having a lot of memory problems right now.
Okay.
As far as I know, I don't think Texas does, but there are states that say that is illegal. It's like the child-sized real dolls.
Right.
There are a lot of people freaking out over that, and they're illegal in a lot of places. So.
Yeah, and I agree with that. So
God, it's like all the way back. At what point suddenly do people use computers for sex? I have to know when that happened. Somewhere somebody was touching it to a punch card, right?
I think it was probably the second day.
Yeah.
Honestly, I don't know, but it seems like I always find it an interesting paradox that anytime we invent a new technology, the first thing we do with it is something naughty.
Yeah. It's the robot chicken.
Exactly.
Can you fuck it?
Yes.
That thing, yeah.
And it really, it shows who we are as humans. It is kind of scary.
I did have a callback to Telegraph Road. A guy got popped. And I helped pop him. He was a waiter, and he was capturing credit cards.
Oh, goodness.
And he was a user on Telegraph Road.
Oh, goodness.
And
I am so disappointed.
He contacted me offering to sell numbers.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
It's insanity.
Yeah. And he's been hit a couple more times.
Wow.
And this was back in the clack,
right.
machine days. Carbon copy things. And so you'd pay for your meal and he'd write down. Just like the ones now, they use a cell phone.
Right.
Snap both sides of it. That's happened to me.
Right. So back to the security thing. The most secure transactions are things that involve the two factors, something you have and something you know.
Right.
So the chip with a pin, you know how you have to put your pin in?
Yeah.
So even if they steal the credit card itself, without the pin, it's useless. I really think America should switch to what's called chip and pin, where every transaction has to have a chip and every transaction has to have a pin. And if you don't have both, it's not valid.
That's beautiful.
It's a simplicity thing, and it really cuts down on illegal usage of credit cards. It makes having the number illegal, useless.
It takes out the problematic part, which is the squishy human,
right,
on both sides. Because you remember, they're supposed to be ID'd,
right.
That's
the something you have, I think, or the credit card would be something you have, and the credit having you ID them is something
right.
you know.
Right. And what happens is, as I understand it, certain credit card companies would say, you use our card, this happens all the time.
Right.
And people would get bitchy about it.
Right.
Having to show all the
time. Right.
So
and there was conspiracy about that as well.
Right.
Yeah.
And so what happens is the 17-year-old clerk stops asking.
Right.
Because he don't want to hear your problems, And
he doesn't care. He's not getting paid enough to worry about it.
Yeah. And I've seen it, ID click, because I had mine flagged. At one point you could do that.
Right.
So you'd be flagged to check ID. So
right.
Now, take it out, man. That's something I totally, let the computers run that.
Right. Chip and pin, and there's they'd have to bring a device to your table at a restaurant. But honestly, I would rather have that than constantly be canceling my credit card and getting a new one because it's stolen again.
Yeah, because some hipster in Austin stole my credit card number. I'll tell you what Cliff did once. He was at a restaurant out of town, and somebody came up.
What really bothers me about that is when they live a better life than me with my credit card.
Yeah, they're having way more fun.
Right.
He took a picture of the waiter.
And
he says, "Why'd you do that?" And he said, "Because you're the only person other than me to have this credit card out of my view." And
right.
I just wanted to remember the moment.
Right. I like that.
Oh, that was kind of cool.
I love that. I may do that.
Yeah. I've been skimmed. I got skimmed in Chicago.
Right.
Wasn't paying attention.
I've been skimmed so many times I can't count it.
Well, up there where you are, DFW.
You're right.
Guys are.
Well, not only that, my credit card is used. I don't carry cash. Yeah. I travel. I use the internet. I have credit cards that are divided into security levels. This is the one most likely to get skimmed, so I use it everywhere.
All right.
This is the one I use when I really, really want to know that it's going to go through.
There you go. Yeah, this is the one. This is the one when I've got, a couple $100 worth of groceries, and I don't want to have to do the walk of shame.
Exactly. Yeah.
That makes total sense.
So yeah, I love it when my phone buzzes and it's the credit card company telling me yet again that my credit card has been used somewhere I have not been.
Yeah, yeah. I'm fortunate. I do most of most of as much as I can. I use PayPal.
Yes, PayPal is an excellent way
PayPal's
to
tight.
improve that security.
Yeah. And I have a credit union which they can get away with security standards, as I understand it, that FDIC can't.
Right, they can.
Yeah.
And your financial institution has a lot of leeway on how tight they can choose to make that.
You know this because you wrote code for financial institutions.
Yes, I have. And I have written code for ATM networks and credit card networks and such.
Yeah. So that's that is absolutely amazing. You're an amazing dude.
Thank you.
And I think it is probably time for us to feed our brides.
I agree.
I'm gonna make some got some marinara going. Got
Awesome.
my recipe down.
Well, and the desserts that are being made next door smell delicious, so I think it's time to call it.
Pot de crème.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's absolutely amazing.
Plus my drink is almost gone.
Yeah, we gotta get out, and if it's 2 drinks is about an hour, and we're at 106, which is about the ballpark average. So
Awesome.
let's do it again, brother. Cheers.
Cheers.
And thank you.
Thank you.